to record this. Um, it was tactical game. Teaching games for understanding is one model that we discussed already. Um, Very brief. Going over it again for another time, just very briefly. That teaching game for understanding, which is also known as tactical games. I give you links for checking it. Even one program, one of the analysis that you have to do for me in the articles refers to that specific model. So they're just a way to use sports in a nicer way. So if you remember, we mentioned it. What we do is try to trigger kids' cognitive thinking by giving them different in-game situations. They don't have to be sports bound, but they can be exercise bound. The only thing is there is a competition, and you have to find a solution to a problem. The solution is typically how to score if we are like 5 and the opponents are 4, or how to defend the goal, or how to avoid the attackers to score if we are defending in 5 and the attackers are 4 or 3. So different situations that you also do a lot in sports, especially in team sports, when you play tactics, like when you are working on strategies. Situations of 3 versus 4, 2 versus 1, 1 versus 1. Every time you have to rethink how to solve the problem. Solving the problem means that if you're an attacker, how to score. If you're a defender, how to stop the attacker. It doesn't have to be again a sport bound. Like you can use it for flag games. You can use it for any game that you figure out, as long as there is a sort of competitions and teams. So the kids have to think about the potential solution, the best solution to solve the issue that they have, and that usually it is a bit more fun for kids, especially in school. And that's why in school it's developed in schools, because what happens in schools? In schools happens that you find people of kids of all type, kids of all skills, kids of all any type of background. I'm talking about exercise experience, any type of background. So the levels are very varied. And if you want to teach technique of a sport or a specific technique, you will have a couple of kids that learn it quickly because they have a huge sport background, because out of school they do a lot of stuff. And you have those that have no idea of what to do or how to do it because they are completely unskilled. But you have, in schools, we have the responsibility to teach everybody. So these sort of tactical games are made for avoiding the condition in which a kid says, okay, I'm unskilled, I can't do this, because the skills don't really matter. What matters is how you think about the solution, and if you think about the solution and the problem properly. So I have a 2 versus 1. What's the best solution? If you think the proper solution, but then you are unable to execute it, that doesn't really matter. Like you can try, or you can divide the class in teams, in groups that are more or less leveled. But the important is, okay, they thought properly on what to do. They thought on they had the proper ideas on how to solve the problem. This is an important transfer for the kids because they have fun. They realize that they can achieve something even if they are not as much skilled. And finally, because it has a transfer in real life. Like in real life, you have to take decisions all the time, and you have to think about all the things that you have around, put them together, and try to take the best decision based on that. So this is the approximately the way the reason why is used. With a PhD student in Mexico, we applied this program in schools, in middle schools, and we try to see, because most of the articles, if you are interested, they will tell you that it increases the decision making, but what about fitness? What about this stuff? So at least the research we did with this PhD student, we had better fitness and better motivation to be active, because kids had a lot of fun. And the point is precisely in this game, since they are done in school, you won't have that much time. But if if you increase a little the fitness and a lot the motivation, the kids will be willing to participate in more activity after that. And so that's a result that we had, and it's not only us, but the teaching game for understanding is used in many places. Is very well known. If you look at it as, or if you look up the program, a part of the links that I already sent you, you'll find a lot of stuff because it's very famous, this program. Now let me tell you about the two main programs we're going to discuss today. Spark and sports education. So let's start with Spark. Spark is a since we're going to talk about programs, this is an existing program. Is well known. Let me show. I have open here some, well, not on Spark precisely, but I have this. Okay, I will tell you in a while. So Spark is a program that if you look up Spark P on the web, you'll find it is a private program, meaning that you have to pay money for that. Well, we did a research on this, and so they gave us for free everything for the schools that participated, and even for other schools back in the United States. But it's a sport, play, and recreation for kids. That's the meaning of Spark, and it's a program that is made for professors of PE to make the activities fun. So to use games, and by means of these games, increasing skills and increasing fitness in kids of all levels. I'm going to show you some of the things that I have on Spark by sharing them on my. Let me share. So they have like a book. What Spark says is, or the creators of Spark say is, okay, we need to make activities fun. We need to make games for the kids, because physical education so far hasn't done that much this. Like most professors in many places focus too much on traditional training, exercises that are not fun at all, exercises that imply elimination of students, or students that have to wait, or interminable waiting times for each student that reduce the time of engagement. There is a study, parenthesis, that confirms that in physical education, the average engagement time of kids is 35% or lower. 35% means that if you have a PE class of 100 minutes, 35 minutes is the real time that the kids are participating in the class. The other 65 minutes, they are either standing waiting for their turn, chatting, hiding somewhere because they don't want to participate, waiting for the professor to prepare the materials and this stuff. And it's a lot of wasted time, 65%. Usually they say that for a class to be effective, it should go beyond 50, but at least better beyond 60%. So 60% of time the kids are active. So those Sparks creators were thinking about it and said, okay, let's make a manual, like they were saying. So the teacher of maths has a book to follow. The teacher of English has a book to follow. The teacher of geography has a book to follow. Physical education teachers don't have anything to follow. They have to just figure out. They don't have they have just guidelines, but they don't have books like the other professors. And so they say, let's make a book on physical education, and let's put there all games, and everything is games that can help the professor like any other professors in schools. And so they created these books. They have actually many books. They are for middle school, they are for primary school, they are for different types of they have different types of reach. I have let me open here a presentation. Okay, let me share it with you. So this is the program. If you look up Spark PE or sparkpe.org, you'll find a lot on the web, and they have different programs. For instance, they have programs for early childhood, programs for physical education, after-school programs, and as you can see here, precisely they have these books, and they are books for the professors. It's like a math book just for the professors. So there is after school with all activities in order. So for the professor, for the teacher of physical education is easier. They don't have to, they still can create and make modifications to their activities, but there are a lot of games in there. So everything is games, and the professor can and the teacher can follow that book, and so present the class in a proper way. So here is what I was saying: 36% or lower is what they found, that the kids are engaged actually in physical education, and the goal will be over 50%. All the programs that Spark have, so regardless of what kind of program you want to get, if you want to get the after school, the preschool, etc., they always have a full curriculum. So you have a book, and the book starts from lesson 1 to lesson 500. And these lessons are all games. I will show you how the games are. And then they are in an order that is made with a sense. Like a math teacher follows a book, and the book is in order. They don't ask the kids to do first the square root and then learning additions. There is a progression, like in everything. You need to learn first the basics, and then you go into something more, etc. Same for this Spark. It's made of progress. There is a progression. You start from basic on fitness, basic of skills, and then little by little the activities become more and more complex. And for a professor of physical education, is much easier, because if they are not really creative, they cannot think about games. They have there a lot of games, and then they have also already a progression, so they know that they don't make mistakes in planning something that is too complex in the beginnings, etc. They have trainings. When we did this program in physical education in Mexico, since there was no Spark for Mexicans, because it was in English mostly, they would send us persons, specialized trainers who teach the teachers, because that's also a complicated part. Like the teachers have to learn how to carry out the activities, the games in a way that is proper. They have follow-up, so they continue following after the program is implemented. They continue following the students and the teachers after that, and they have also their own equipment. Obviously, it depends on where you are. Like you can use the equipment that you want, including your own, but their equipment is made in a way that is adapted for kids, and so on. This is an example of a class of Spark. Like in the book that I showed you, you find things like this. There is a one page is the explanation of the exercise, and this helps a lot of the game. This helps a lot the professor, because you don't lose that much time when you know exactly how to set the things and what to prepare. So for instance, the upper part you have ready. What do you need for being ready for the game? One ball per 6 students, one penny per 2 students. So all the material that the professor has to have ready for the game. Set, how to prepare the environment quickly, so to have the game ready to play, and then go is the instructions that the teacher has to give to the students for the game. And this is one page where you can see also that there are cues, so like hints that you can give, a feedback that you can give to the student, and also challenges. So how to challenge yourself or challenge the others to make it more interesting. This usually motivates the kids. There are games, and there are challenges. So if it becomes too easy, you can make it a bit more complex. And then there is the page 2, which is the one that you see on the right, the Spark It Up. They play with the name Spark. Spark is the spark, from a flame. So Spark It Up is like to make it more difficult. And there are suggestions for the professor directly on variants that they can use to make it even more difficult than the challenges. And finally, they also want to make some literacy within the game, and they have different things on this box, on this black box on the right, where you can see academic. You can find different things. For instance, in some cases, there are challenges for home, like do this at home and try to use this material at home and play a game with your brother or sister or with your parents. In others, there are information on things of other topics. It can be also literature, it can be geography, it can be science, etc. And this is because they want to, apart of present games, they also want to um, promote the intersectoral learning. So you learn more things at the same time. You learn from physical activity, but you also learn from science, biology, or whatever. Connected to this, I used a lot of games in schools, not bounded to a program, that help kids work on the things that they learn in other topics, in other subjects, at the same time that they are, for instance, active through physical education and maybe increase their fitness, etc. If I ask you now to think about something, an activity, just quickly, or anything that you have that come up in your mind, that pops up in your mind, or if you have tried it, that you could use for the kids to be active, play, and at the same time learning something different than physical education. I don't know, for instance, mathematics or biology or whatever. Anything in mind? Or anything that you tried before? Because Spark is in this is precisely with the box, puts a lot of emphasis, and the comprehensive school approach that I told you in the beginning also puts a lot of emphasis on the importance of learning more things at the same time. Well, one of the things that we did a lot with my wife, with Misha. Misha is a specialist in English, and she used, until we came here, she used to teach at the university as well. Just the English department. And a thing that we used to do together in schools was games to learn both English and to be active, and so increase fitness, etc. Now that I give you an hint, any idea what kind of game we can do for joining these two topics? Is there any way that you have in mind? Maybe just use your creativity and think, what could you do to learn English and at the same time do physical activity?
Yeah, like doing a crossword.
Again, sorry?
Running to a paper and doing a crossword there, and then running back again, and then it's the turn of the other one, and kind of doing a crossword.
Okay, so, and then obviously the crosswords is in English, for instance, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, that's for instance, this is an example. You create teams. The teams, it's a relay race. You have to go through obstacles and this stuff, reach for instance, a huge crosswords that you stick on the wall, and then based on the hint that you have, like a typical crosswords game, you have to try to figure out the word. This is an example. Another that we did a lot was a game to develop body awareness. This is physical education part, and the game to develop, and at the same time learn the names of the parts of the body. So what we did once in the United States, it was not with English, obviously, it was with Spanish. But what we did is we had bodies drawn on the floor of the halle with a chalk, huge bodies, and then we had teams, and the teams were in front of the bodies with some bags or with whatever things you want, and then we would tell them, you have to hit with that bag the shoulder, and you say it in English or you say it in Spanish, la espalda or el hombro, and they have to connect the word with what part of the body is, and at the same time they have to throw the bag or throw the ball or throw whatever and try to hit that part with that bag. And this joins physical activity, because a part of the curriculum is learning your body, and also precision throwing, which is something that you want to develop in physical activity, physical education, and learning language. This is just an example of all the activities that can be done, and Spark, for instance, promotes this a lot. Mathematics. What did we do with mathematics? For one example of mathematics is I did activities with the kids in which there was an equation depending on the age that they have, right? Because we're talking about different age. It can be middle school, it can be primary school, based on the age that they have. And you discuss with the other professor, with the maths professor, okay, what did you do so far? This, and this. Okay, let's put it into the physical education class in a game. Equations that need to be solved. The kids in team have to solve the equation, and once they solve the equation, they have to represent with their body the number all together. Like let's say that the equation is the result of the equation is 406, and they together as a team they have to form a 406 using their own bodies. This is another example. It's a game, it's a challenge, it's cooperation because you have to work together to find the solution, and it's body control because you have to control your body in different positions to make it to make a number and be balanced, and it's mathematics. So Sparks use a lot of this program that I'm telling you is game based, but uses a lot of this stuff in order to make it also intersubject. So you learn things from kids play, which is always a good way for learning, and at the same time they develop fitness and they learn something more. This is a yearly plan, for instance, that they give the teachers in Spark. So you have all the year from September 1st to June 10. This is because in the United States, this is the season, the academic year for students. Then you have the units block of content. And then you have within each instructional unit, as you can see in the middle column, there are plenty of games. Each one is filled with games of different types, and you can play them. Then if you see that the kids have learned to play that game very well, you can put the challenges, you can increase the difficulties, etc. And usually they have also, so these are the units, and then the professor can go and say, okay, let me see in the building a foundation unit, what should I do? In this case, is the parachute unit. See, the parachute unit is right here, October 2. You can see my screen, right? You can see the presentation, right? So if you have next to October 2, you have parachute. Parachute will last for a month because as you can see, the following unit is November 3rd. So what am I supposed to do? And these are all the activities that you can do. Of course, they have 12 classes if you have 3 times physical education. If you have 2 times, you can choose activities within these groups of activities. So you have activities that are called as soon as possible, ASAP, and then parachute introduction, chute shapes, etc. Each name of this is, then you can find it in the book like this. So how to set up the game, how to do the pre-get it ready, and then go and play the game. Usually what they do is in Spark, they have 2 main streams. They have one stream of games that are for fitness. The other stream of games is for skills, like motor skills. And in a class, they do both things each time. So each class that they have of physical education, they do a part skills, a part fitness. Usually they do around 20-25 minutes fitness, 20-25 minutes skills. If possible, what they do is split the class. Half of the class is doing the game of fitness and the other half is doing the game of skills. And then they turn at 25 minutes, switch, and the group that was doing fitness goes to skills. The group that was doing skills goes to fitness. In your opinion, what is the reason why they, if possible, they propose to split the activity in 2 parts? What could be one of the reasons that they do that? Obviously, you cannot always do it, but when you can, they suggest to do it. What could be a reason why they suggest it? What could be the advantage? Any idea?
Yeah, to give them some instructions in the break. So like they start playing and then when they stop the game, you as a teacher can give them some instructions what they can improve and then start again the game.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Like in terms of if you have to watch over half of the class, let's say, it's easier to identify issues and give feedback personally rather than if you have everybody playing the game. Like you can be switching from skills to fitness, you as a professor check who's doing well, but it's easier probably because they are half and half. This could be a reason. Other reasons that could lead to that. I'm going to tell you one of the reasons in Mexico. In Mexico, one of the reasons is lack of material. Imagine that you want to play a certain game. You have 30 students in a class, and you have material to play that game for only 15 students. What do? You tell 15 to wait and the other 15 play? That would be against the game of Spark. The idea of Spark is let's have everybody engaged for sufficient time, more than 50% of the time. And so they say, let's split. 15 are playing with the full-time that activity, other 15, meanwhile, they are doing the skills or vice versa. And then we switch. So material is one of the reasons. Like when I don't have enough material, I split the class. Maybe I have enough material for fitness for 15, and I have enough materials for skills for 15. So I can split, and everybody is active all the time. So there is no wasted time. And connected to this is precisely that, but maybe it's less familiar to you because I don't know how it is here, but in the United States or in Mexico, it's very common that you have PE classes with 50 students. That's a bit crazy. Like you have 50 students in a class, and you can imagine how it works, that thing. So unless you split the class, that's chaos. And therefore they do that, and it works, splitting it works much better. But the point is, regardless you split or not, for instance, in the Czech Republic, they introduce Spark, but splitting doesn't make much sense because they have a limited number of students, like up to 15, 16, 17. Now my wife, if my wife is listening, she can correct me because she was in school. Okay. She just corrected me, as always.
In Czech Republic, the maximum number of students is 36.
Oh.
We split for language classes and
okay, don't need to be so
ICT,
precise.
But for PE, in the primary, starting from the 6th grade, we don't do co-ed. We do girls and boys.
That's it.
But you can have, usually the number is lower, right?
Okay.
Usually you would have around 28 up to 30. You would never really reach 36 because that's the maximum. But we don't do co-ed. Co-ed can be possible at secondary level.
Okay, just
so
too detailed. Let's go.
Fine. Or technical schools, because there are not enough classes, like
okay.
The same grade.
Enough. Thank you. Have you heard? No, it's because she will tell us the whole Czech system if she can. She's like me. She can't stop talking like me. Anyways, so they do split by gender. I didn't know that. Anyways, in some countries they have this limited number. You cannot have too many students at the same time, and therefore in those countries doesn't make much sense to split. But in others, like Mexico, the example, or United States, when you have really full classes, they propose to split it because so all kids can be engaged in a longer time of physical activity. And so these units are going together. There are units that are fitness, units that are skill. The professor has two programs. One program is the yearly program for fitness, and the other is the yearly program for skills. So basically every week they have two things that they check. What do I do today about fitness? What do I do today about skills? And every single activity is a game. So there is basically no space for anything else during the class time but games. Games that improve cardio, games that improve strength, games that improve skills of any type through sports. And they are all games, and the basics is what we always said in this class. Involve everybody. Do not leave anyone out. Keep everybody working out as much as they can, regardless of their level. Well, they have workshops. So this is an example of the equipment that they sell. It's nothing particularly different than the norms. They just have it adapted for the kids. it's a business for them. So it's logical that they also present their own material. I personally, when we implemented it, we never used their material. We used our own. Also for an important reason for us, that Maria, un attimo, amore. Sorry, guys. Yeah, prendilo. Sorry, my kid asked me if she could take the vacuum cleaner. You can also clean if you want, kid. And the reason why we didn't use their material is very simple, because not all schools can buy their material, and if we do something with the schools, we want the schools then to actually use it if it works. But a school would use it because we go there with our project that is funded, we bring the material because we paid it, but then we leave and they have to keep buying material, and that sometimes in some schools is not feasible. So we prefer to show them how to work on these games, but using the materials they have, or creating their own materials for even the students. Can you go on the other room, please? To the other room, please. Lasco, they are both here. Can you tell them to move? Sorry, guys. Kids just. This is the worst time for teaching in class, because they come back at 2 from the kindergarten, so they are full of energy. And so this is in the presentation that I will upload in Ola, there is information where you can check things on Spark and you can see it if you are curious about that. But remember, it's a very good program for playing games in school. The only problem with this program is that you need to pay for it. So like schools need to pay for it. So for instance, some schools in the some district in the United States, they had it paid for all the schools. So it's the district, the administrations that pay for it. But in many cases, schools cannot pay for it or cannot use it. And in those cases, obviously, it becomes useless. But when you do have when the schools have the money for that, is very interesting to use it. Let me show you some of the activities here. Other activities. I have it open. I have opened some activities for you so you can see. For instance, this. I'm going to share it with you. Oh, I lost you. Oh, you're here. Share screen. Yeah. This is for instance the activity that is called Centipede Bucket Brigade. So again, you have the graphical explanation on how it works. You have how to set up the things, what material you need, instructions that the teacher has to give to the students here, the go, then challenges to make it more complicated, exactly as I showed you, just for the same activity. Then different ways to spark it up. For instance, animal walk. So instead of doing it standing, you do it in a different way by walking in different ways or jumping, etc. And finally, this part that I didn't tell you is some suggestions for the teacher, and in Paula's pointer. And then the standards address refers to what kind of things we are developing with kids through this game. So in this case, this spatial awareness, manipulation of toss ball, manipulation of objects, cardiovascular fitness, etc. Let me show you. I have it open on YouTube, so I can show you this particular game that I was discussing with you. But I have to share it again, and it's here. This is the example of the game that we just saw. Everybody is involved. They are running, they are passing some tossable, and then they are reaching a last part of the gym in which there is a sort of bucket in which each team has to put each tossable. This is a very simple game. I guess that you have seen it already. So kids have to pass it one to another. Oops, it's finished already. One to another an object, run back to the line, and then reach the bottom, put the object in the box, and go back. It's just an example, but very simple activity. Other activities that, oh, let me stop this. Okay. Other activities that are that they do in Spark, we even tried them. The builders, the air bullying, and this stuff are typical activities that they create, or the kickball, aerobic kickball, and this stuff. They invent any type of activity. It's nothing really new. The only great thing is that they put games all together in a book that the teacher can follow, and that these games are put in a progression. So if you have difficulties in saying, okay, this game is more complex, where do I put it, etc., for a PE teacher is a very good, a great help. Questions on Spark, guys? No, okay, very fun. Yeah, great. Maybe if we had seen it in the Halle, it would be a bit different. The second topic the second model that I wanted to discuss is sport education.
I just can't taste it. I will not eat.
Okay.
Sorry, I cannot see.
Okay.
I cannot see.
You cannot see?
No, I don't see.
The sport education, together with Maria, we have here the help of Maria. Let's sport education, okay? We also, I kind of mentioned it before, but again, you can apply it in school or out of school. Sorry for a moment. Maria, adesso un numero mio. 5 minuti, sì? 10 minuti, 20 minuti probably. Okay, so sport education is another program that is very known, very used, and also is for free, which for schools is very important. And is again, in this case, we are talking about sports, like concrete sports. It can be any type of sport, but we are talking about preparing a sort of school league. What's new? All schools have leagues, true. But the school leagues exist in school. Vasco. So sorry, but the school leagues that you know, or that are more common to see, for instance, I don't know what kind of school leagues you have, guys, here, but in the United States there are the school leagues, and they are like crazy. They are like professional sport. Everybody wants to win, and everything that is against the students developing properly is right there in the school sport. This is for schools sport for everybody. So you create a league. Actually, the kids create a league together with the teacher. They build everything. The kids decide how the league will work, what the scoring system, what will be the rules, etc. And I said it once when we were discussing about games before, games for kids. There is not a single way to score points for your team. If you remember, we mentioned it, but there are several ways to score points for your team. Like if you are a good sportsman, so if you have fair play, you score points for your team. If you are, sometimes you have to referee other matches. If you show that you are good at refereeing, you know the rules, you apply well, you score points for your team. So this is made for different things. One thing is you play, so you are active. But the other thing is, typically when you play sports and there are those kids that are less skilled, that feel either not really comfortable playing, or they try not to play, or they are bullied by those who are more skilled because they are less skilled. And if you give points to the team only for winning matches, that would make even greater the gap, because I lost the match and it was Philip's fault because Phillips is unable to play soccer. Just to mention a name, right? So I'm losing the competition because in my team there is Philip is very bad at playing whatever sport is the sport that we chose. And this is what we don't want to happen in schools. And so, hey, no, wait a minute. Okay, we lost matches, but Philip is great at refereeing, and is great as manager, because there are different roles within each team, and they're scoring a lot of points for us as a manager and as a referee. And at the end of the semester or the academic year, our team may win the world competition thanks to Philip's points in refereeing and fair play. So it's kind of stimulating everybody because everybody recognizes a way to be helpful for the team. Remember when we discussed about cooperation? Cooperative games. Cooperative games is not when you are doing all of you the same thing just to try to be fast. For instance, in the relay games in which you have to run and come back, high five, and the other one goes. That's not cooperation. Cooperation is, what are you good at? What am I good at? Let's exploit our best assets, each one's best asset in the team to make the most of them. And so everybody's stimulated. Okay, I'm not that skilled, so I'm not bringing many points during the competition itself, but I'm very good at coaching or at refereeing, and this brings points. So I'm getting more and more motivated to do that. Another thing important that sport education does is the literacy. Literacy is a hot topic in sport and physical education, and through games they are teaching kids literacy. Literacy means that they learn sports in a deeper way than they would do in regularly school, because they learn more rules. They learn how it works to coach, training, etc. So more things. Actually, this type of models are better suited for middle school than primary because they are too complex for that. But for that, you learn a lot of stuff. So some people went out of sport education units and realized that they like to become referees in a sport, and they studied for that. They became referees, or as a side job, or as just a enjoyment, they became referees. Something that you usually in PE or in regular sports, you don't really get at that unless you really want that. But sport education model shows you all this stuff. I have a unit open here. Another thing that I will share with you here. Let me put it full screen. Okay, this is not. That's the following video, it's not my fault. Yeah, this just a very short. Oh, wait a minute, something started. Okay. So this is just a short summary of what sports education does. So basically, at the beginning of the semester or the school year, you split the class or you split the whole school into teams. The teams can mix up even, like it doesn't have to be classes precisely the same classes as exist, but it can be split, and then split. And then the kids establish the rule, create a book of rules for the sport. Maybe you play a sport that you already know, like soccer or volleyball, but the kids can still work on the rules and create their own rules different than the original sport. And then you have different phases. You have what do you have typically in a league? You have a preseason. So in preseason, during the preseason, the kids use the recess time, they use the PE time, etc. in teams, in the teams in which they are formed. to train. So they try strategies, they work out to get confident with the activity, etc. Obviously, you teacher, you're not just there watching and saying, good job, now I can sit and have a coffee and read my newspaper. You are walking around, you're giving suggestions, you're telling them what to do, you're telling them, not what to do, but you're telling them what to do if there is some issue. You're giving them hints on how to train certain abilities that are related with the sport that they want to play, and so on. And then there is a phase that is called, by the end of the preseason, you do the friendly matches. So you have the kids using recess time and using PE for friendly matches. They play each other, they try the game, they try even refereeing the game, so they get used to how it works. And then the world, as long as you want this unit to be, they basically have like a normal league. You have the calendar with matches. You have the calendar also for the assistant team. The assistant team is a team that is not playing, like physically, but they are covering other roles. What are the other roles? For instance, let's say that me, Pauli, and Philip are a team, and we are playing today against Aaron, Nikos, and Daniel. But there are other teams like in the league. There is the team of Anna, Evelyn, and Daria, and they are not scheduled to play a game today. But today they are the assistant team. The assistant team means that each of them will cover a specific role for the matches to play properly. So Anna, for instance, will be referee of our match. Daria will be the statistics, in charge of the statistics, so taking the name of who scores, the yellow card, etc. Evelyn will be observing fair play and putting grades on the fair play of the teams. There is a risk. The risk involved is that Evelyn is from a team, another team, and tries to put bad grades to all of us, so her team wins. But this is controlled by the teacher too. The teacher evaluates if the kids are fair when they are evaluating others, if they are fair when they are refereeing, etc. So there is a sort of control. The more responsible the kids, the easier and smoother the class to go. But typically, the sport education is built on these three teams. Two play, one is supporting the play with other roles. When Anna is being referee, she can score points for their team. If she's a good referee, if she shows good refereeing, good knowledge of the rules, ability to keep everybody calm, if she respects the others while refereeing, if she's not biased, etc. All of this brings points to the team. The points are given by observers. Observers can be external, the teacher and others, can be internal, other teams that are observing, but in the end, each team, even the assistant team, the one who's not playing, is gathering points for the general ranking. So what does Hannah have to do for being a good referee? Well, for sure, she has to study the rules. If she studies the rules, she knows the rules. If she knows the rules, she applies them. So the game stimulates kids to take different things and learn different things, so they can do properly the job that they're asked to. And therefore, everybody scores points, everybody is motivated, and you learn a lot of stuff. Usually by the end of the semester or the period of the league, depending on how the kids decided to create the league, you have a final day, the day of celebration. In some schools we did it, and the final celebration is playing games just for fun of the same sport that we played. Bring cakes, bring food, bring drinks, non-alcoholic drinks, etc. And you just have a final day, like in the leagues, with the exhibitions and award. So you give the awards to the kids. The awards can be any type of things. I think I mentioned that, but once we did awards, most of the time the awards are created by the kids. They use old bottles, plastic bags, they use whatever they want. They can create medals, they can create trophies, etc. And those trophies are going to be given to each category winner of the referees. So the best team in refereeing, the best team in fair play, the best team in the season competition, and the champion of the champions, the one that scored the most points, summing up all categories. It's really pretty fun. I did it a lot of times, and this is something that I'm actually bringing also here in Austria to try to use the recess time to a part of the PE for doing some activities. I will show you the sport that hopefully, if everything is okay, we'll start implementing with the next semester in schools. But we are going to play this. Show you here. Let me see if I can share this. This one. Can you see? It's Quidditch. In Quidditch Austria, actually. I have it here. So there are a few teams in Austria, not many. The Harry Potter game, we mentioned it already once, that this exists. Yeah, it looks very weird, but it's pretty fun. Austria is one of the 40 nations that have a team. I guess that in the last two European, there are also World Cups and European competition, in case you didn't know. In the Euro Cup, Austria participated in the last two editions, and I think they were 7th. In the World Cup, I think they were 13th or so. USA and Canada, those who won the most, but they had only so far four World Cups in total because it's a relatively young sport. Why is this a game that is very nice to implement? Because it's not that known, which solves a big issue. One of the big issues is that the kids, let's say that we play soccer. Now, soccer, everybody knows soccer. So if you tell me, let's play soccer, I know that I'm very bad at soccer and I'm already depressed. Oh no, soccer, I'm very unskilled. I'm going to have a very hard time. And instead, Daniel is a phenomenon of soccer, and he will say, oh yes, soccer, but let's hope not to get Armando in the team because Armando is very bad. This is the typical way in which kids reflect on things when they know the sport or they know the activity. They know who's skilled, they know who's not skilled. They think that they are skilled or they are not, and based on that, they are motivated or less motivated. But sports that are less known, games that are less known, help in different ways. One is leveling. Nobody has played that. Of course, there is always someone that is more skilled than the others, but it's a bit more level than when you play a regular sport that everybody knows. Another thing that is very good is that the kids learn a different sport or a different activity that they may find fun, and they may get involved more often in this activity. And finally, this particular game is not gender specific. You know that there are all biases of all. I'm not saying that sports is gender specific, but I'm saying that there are a lot of biases in terms of sport and gender. If you say soccer, half of the guys think that the girls cannot play because soccer is a boys' game, which is not true, right? There are as many girls as boys that who play very well soccer, but there are some biases in general. Dance, girls will think that this is or guys will think this is a girls' activity, or so. There are biases in sports that are known, and this specific one is there is no separation of gender. For instance, when you play soccer, official soccer, there is women's soccer or male soccer. This is for everybody, and this is very good in also in schools, because you want to teach gender equality. You want to teach that everybody can play the same game at the same time. There is no need of splitting or this stuff. And so this is interesting for it. I have. Can you see the video? And that's it. Austria is relatively new to the game. Like there were originally 16 federations, but then it expanded. Austria is 40. None in Innsbruck, as far as I know. They have a couple in Vienna and Salzburg. You can find more information on the webpage there. That is Quidditch Austria. But it's interesting because precisely you can join the game model of sport education and use it with a new game, for instance Quidditch, but it can be any other. Like Quidditch is because it's particularly interesting for me because it's genderless, equal, not as known, and so introduces kids to something new that they have to readapt their skills to. And it's pretty fun. Just you cannot fly, but the rest is relatively fun. If we had the possibility, like if we had practice for real, I would have showed it to you. We did it a lot of times back in the past. The only difference, if you're familiar with Harry Potter's movie, the snitch, is that small ball that flies around and very fast, and you have to catch it in Harry Potter's movie. If you use a person, like in that case, in some cases you have to really choose properly the kid that you use for the snitch, because it requires a lot of physical condition already, because you have to run around not being caught by the opponents. So we use different strategies. For instance, I remember once in Mexico we used the strategy of before the class started, since we were outside on a grass, I tossed a small coin in the grass somewhere, and the seekers had to find could choose to either participate in the game and score goals regularly, or go around the area and try to find on the floor, on the grass, the coin. Another thing was that I had two persons, not one person as the niche running around, but I had two persons that were passing each other a ball, like two persons that were not related to any of the team playing, and they were throwing to each other a ball from distance. They could move around and keep passing each other the ball, and the only way to catch the snitch was to stop the ball in the air before either person would catch it. So there is these two persons that are external from the team. They are tossing the ball to each other, running around and passing the ball to each other, and the seekers had to try to intercept the passes. This is a bit less demanding for the persons who are playing the snitch, because you don't have to run to avoid someone to catch you, but you can just toss the ball as far as you can, so for the others not to pick it. There are just simple or small modifications that you can make, and you always will have to make in the future when you work with a team, or when you work with kids, or wherever you want to work with. You will always have to adapt things and games in order to make them feasible for the group you have. But in general, these are very good ideas for activities to implement in school, because if you heard what the guy was saying, they were saying that Quidditch, it was very good because it introduced non-athletic persons into the athletic endeavor. Like, this is what we seek through games in school, is to introduce kids of all type, regardless of the basic skills they have, regardless of the attitude they have, into the sports and into the exercising with fun and motivation. Questions? No questions. Okay, then this is everything I wanted to discuss today. I know that someone asked me before we close, someone asked me about the warm-up. I replied personally, but just since it's not the first person, remember that you have a session template in the useful files. In the folder, in all that useful files, you have a thing that is called session template. Use that template to fill your activity, the activity of the warm-up. Okay, it's right there. Like, create the exercises that you need to create, and then put them in the format that is in session template in useful files. That's it. Because someone asked me, and probably I didn't make it clear, but the file is there. It has been there since the very beginning. So open it. If you have doubts when you open the file, let me know, because I've been in contact with some of you, but since the dates are getting closer, the sooner you realize, the sooner you see if you have doubts or if everything is smooth, the better, so we can figure it out as soon as possible. All right. Okay. Then, if there are no more questions, guys, I'll see you next week, and we will go on with the auto schools, talking about auto schools activities. So similar to this, but what kind of games are played in specific existing projects for playing games in auto school environment. All right. See you next week, guys. Thank you for the patience. Have a nice day, rest of the day.